between 12 and 15 videos on average per week, as opposed to 3 or 4 with so many YouTubers out there. You really got to put out, banger content. I was completely like anti-social media, but I knew when I did the first video, there was absolutely no stop, and I knew I was going to stick with it. You just,
Ben, sir, thank you so much for making the time today. I know things are busy as always, so really grateful for you making some space for us to have a chat and learn a little bit more about your background, what things were like for you growing up, your career to date, how you got into crypto, how you got into becoming a crypto creator, and what your advice might be for someone who is thinking of becoming a creator themselves. So firstly, great to have you on board. Thanks so much for being with us.
Great. Thank you for having me very much. Definitely excited to be here. And yeah, let's get started.
Amazing. Well, let's jump right back to kind of the very start. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, what life was like, and give us a sense of things at that stage.
Sure. So I'm from Massachusetts, Boston, grew up out here, went to college here, moved to Los Angeles for years and years, and then just moved back here to Boston about three years ago. So East Coast right now, it's a pretty good time zone for crypto. You've got the London people, 5 hours one side. You have the West Coast California people, 3 hours on the other side. So kind of, if I could choose one time zone, it would probably be New York, Boston time.
Nice. Fantastic. And in terms of life growing up in Boston and, what you were like as an adolescent, teenager, what were your hobbies? What were you into?
Just sports, basically. Grew up, tennis was my big sport, ran cross country, soccer, basketball, all that sort of stuff, watching sports as well. I've been into the financial markets a little bit growing up. The .com era, I was going to the middle school library and checking up on stocks way back then. So the trading gene has kind of always been in me. Obviously, crypto was not around then, but I didn't actually buy any .com stocks, but I was kind of following them. I could, the signs of euphoria and all that stuff and bubbles. I kind of got exposed to that at a very young age. So yeah, very sort of educated background with a lot of interest in sports as well.
Excellent. I mean, you're a classic Bostonian, Ben, being into sports and finance. It's the natural hybrid, I suppose, of interest. Did you, when you mentioned you studied in Boston, what did you do in college? What was your focus in terms of subjects?
I was finance, basically. Yeah, I was in the business school, Boston College here, undergraduate degree in finance. So
fantastic. And then from there, talk us about your career kind of post university, post college. What was that like? What were you focused on when you went to LA?
Yeah, so it's been kind of a mixed bag. I moved out to LA originally to do entertainment. I worked in the entertainment industry just for about a year or two, not too much. Pivoted over to my undergraduate degree, which is in finance, as mentioned. So I've worked in, since then, I've worked in corporate finance for an internet startup. I've worked at some big companies like Bank of America and their risk management division. I've worked in Wells Fargo and their asset-based lending division, more of a straight up banking job. I've worked with Sony Pictures out there and their residuals analysis division, sort of like a risk management division, how they pay out the royalties to artists. So it's kind of been all over the place. And then, obviously I found cryptocurrency around 2017. It's sort of been kind of been in and out of it since then. But yeah, should we kind of segue into cryptocurrency here? Or do you have any more questions?
Well, no, feel free just to, I suppose I'm curious, as you were in the finance space, it's such a broad, it's nearly too big of a catch-all term. It's good to hear a little bit more about specifically what you were doing. So a bit of risk management and, other aspects of obviously your banking role. I suppose I'm curious, coming from that background in banking, when you did start to stumble across crypto in 2017, what was your sense of it like? Did it feel kind of a bit left field, a little bit out there, or did you feel at that point, this just feels like another form of an asset to me?
Coming from corporate finance, I always kind of had that trading gene in me, but obviously working, if you're working in risk management at Bank of America, it's kind of the opposite of that right there. So there was no real exposure to the financial markets. It was we were like basically home loans. I was in the home loan division, where when we decide whether to approve or disapprove borrowers for loans, and what's the percentage chance that they're going to be able to pay their mortgage successfully, or whether they're going to default, etc. So just kind of a straight up analysis job there. I have an MBA as well, so this was really kind of utilizing my MBA, which is a lot of like just textbook stuff, just financial theory, etc. There's a lot of complicated mathematical equations. So that's what that job was. It was good. I liked working at Wells Fargo. I liked working at Bank of America. You get to work with a team and the corporate structure, even though we're all kind of entrepreneurial now that we're in cryptocurrency. It does, that you meet just being around smart people every day, kind of learn a lot from them. So it's definitely, obviously cryptocurrency can be a little more isolating. That's one of the negatives. Corporate, a lot of people just kind of bash the corporate life. I kind of liked it when I was there. Definitely working with the team has its benefits, and you just kind of get smarter every day. But obviously, right now, I would not change anything for the world being in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, fantastic. No, it's really good to hear that insight, because as you said, I think a lot of people just kind of bash corporate banking, but there's a lot of pros to it. And I think when you look at the number of entrepreneurs who go through corporate banking and come out, there's clearly some really hard skills that are learned. And as you said, rubbing up against kind of bright people always has benefits to it. So I suppose in terms of your very first exposure to crypto, talk us around that. What was it like? What was your first your first experience?
Sure. So I've been in it off and on since 2017. I remember I was coming back. I was working at Sony during that time, and I remember early 2017, Bitcoin was at about 2,000. It was slowly creeping up to like 3,000, then 5,000, 10,000. Then it finished the year 19,000. So people here think we're on a bull run. I mean, we said literally it went 1,500 to 19,000 in a 1 year period from like February 2017 to December 2017. So yeah, I bought some back then. I was going to like local meetups, been to a few like smaller conferences. The big conference, like Art of Cryptocurrency, wasn't really around there. But yeah, I had bought the portfolio, bought some Bitcoin, bought some Ethereum. Obviously didn't quite hold on to as much as I would have liked. That's sort of the common story with anyone who's back there. But yeah, I invested in some ICOs, even bought a few low caps. There was a little bit of low cap trading right then. I should have started my YouTube channel back then, back in 2017. It wasn't quite as prevalent as it is now. A few guys were still there like that, had started, like Data Dash, he was there. Crypto Lark, now it's called Mark Davis, he was there. Crypto Zombie, he was there. Who else was there? I think BitBoy started then, Wendy O started then. So it wasn't, now it's like, everyone has a YouTube channel. But back then, basically, if you just got, like, I remember I met Crypto Zombie at a conference in January 2018. He's a huge influencer now. He has like 250,000 subscribers. He told me at the conference he had just started his YouTube channel a week earlier. So I had never heard of him. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. He literally had like 100 subscribers, but he was getting 4,000 or 5,000 views on every video just because there was nobody talking about Bitcoin. And that was right when Bitcoin was at like between 15 and 19,000. So yeah, there was no competition back then. If you started a channel and you just talked about Bitcoin, do some live streams, boom, you're getting thousands of views. Now you obviously have to be much more kind of crafty. You got to pick the communities that you fit in well, that you think the price is going to rise, that that have a built-in following. But you can also grow your following as well. The narrative has to sort of connect with you. The people in the community, they have to kind of come from a similar background as you. They got to fit that way as well. There's the Twitter game as well. There's Twitter Spaces and their memes and everything. So it's totally different. But yeah, so going along with that, so I was 2017 to 2019, I was kind of informally in cryptocurrency, owned some coins, went to some conferences, invested in ICOs, and I was out of the industry from 2019 to 2022. Didn't really do too much. I still held a little bit. I'd still check the charts once a week, a couple times a week, etc. I was working in event management back then. Then in 2022, I decided to do both. So then I finally decided to start my YouTube channel. Why then? I was just kind of ready. I figured it was the middle of a bear market. It was like May, June 2022. That's when the prices were down. So it'd be a good time to enter. And then for the first 2.5 years, so I've been doing it about 3 years. The first 2.5 years, I was doing both working in event management and then doing cryptocurrency at night. Doing many less videos. I do at most one video a day, maybe about 4 videos a week. The last 6 months, then I've been full-time in cryptocurrency. It was a great decision, obviously. A little scary at the start, but now it allows me to do between 12 and 15 videos on average per week, as opposed to 3 or 4 with so many YouTubers out there. You really got to put out, banger content. You have to put out a lot of content. There's the Twitter angle too. I'm very active as Twitter as well, more of in a low cap calling space. And then I do a lot of Twitter Spaces. I'm on Zach Humphreys. He does a morning space. It's pretty good traction. I get about 1,000 total listeners each day. I'm one of the regular guests there every morning. So that kind of, that's a little bit different. That's just kind of sounding knowledgeable of the markets in general, just talking about the overall direction, news updates. And then my video content is mostly strictly meme coins. I cover some large caps like SPX 6900, Toshi. I cover a lot of low caps as well. Do a mix of both. Some projects I partner with, some I just cover on my own. I ape a ton of coins as well. Some of the partner projects I do ape, some I don't. And then some coins I just ape on my own. I want to call because I'm bullish on them. And then my Twitter, I'm very active on Twitter as well. That's more of kind of memes, just sort of silly, funny stuff. What can go, what kind of meme can you put that's going to go viral and then help this coin catch on, et cetera. So it's a mix of between my YouTube channel, my just regular tweeting, and then my Twitter Spaces appearances in the morning.
Fantastic, fantastic, Ben. No, great to get that whole flow. I'm fascinated around like 2017, 2019. At that stage, was that pre-event management? You were still in banking at that point, I
Uh,
guess?
yeah,
Or
I was still in
yeah,
banking at that point, and then event management has been the last 3
the
years.
last 3 years.
So event management was kind of like, yeah, that was sort of at left field, just an opportunity kind of came my way, but totally not in line with corporate finance. You're correct.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. And when you were in banking, when you started to dabble and build your portfolio, like were these conversations happening with team members? Was this a kind of a conversation point in the office, or were you just very kind of isolated? I guess you'd stumbled across a little bit through your trading interest. You know, what was the general ethos at the time from like a typical bank employee standpoint?
There were a couple people in the office who were interested in it as well. There's like one guy, this guy Anthony. We'd always kind of check it, if stuff was pumping one day and then I didn't notice it, he'd tell me, hey, here Ripple or Ethereum was pumping, et cetera. Stellar Lumens that came out, he was a big fan of that one. So yeah, by and large, no, the corporate finance people were not interested in crypto. It was a very anti. They kind of enjoyed not really liking it. Now you kind of have to be open to crypto no matter what industry you're in. But back then there was a very sort of a negative sentiment, unless you're in the 5 to 10% of people who are just naturally into that. But yeah, it was a couple of my regular friends outside of work were into it. I was very active on Reddit boards as well. Then I had my Reddit friends. We'd be tweeting about that. Was the best way to get it. Crypto Twitter wasn't really a thing in 2017, but Reddit, that's where you go to get all your information. So I was active there, and then one or two people at work. So kind of a mixed bag.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I'm kind of, you mentioned Twitter, a couple of times through different ways and how it builds into part of your portfolio of content creation. On one side, as you said, if you did start a channel back in 2017, 2018, there was minimal competition. You could get a lot of traction pretty quickly. But I guess at the same time, is there a little bit of an argument that now there's maybe more interest in general, maybe a bigger audience, and you've kind of got more tools, although it's never easy on either side, does I guess the variety of ways with which you can garner attention kind of, I guess by the sounds, but it excites you. You're active every morning with Zach. I actually just had a chat with Zach a couple of days ago on the pod here. A fantastic guy. You've obviously got your 12 to 15 videos pumping out there. So does that like multimedia approach that you take to your presence kind of give you, energizes you, I suppose? You're not just stuck in producing one old boring video a day.
Oh yeah, it's when you're full time into it, and you love it. You work more than you do at your regular if you have a regular job, and then you're always tired then. But then you're like working more here, then you're more energized. Absolutely, and then yeah, the market is much bigger. You have to be obviously some coins already have tons of people covering them, some don't. So you got to kind of be a little craftier, figuring out which communities sort of have a big following, but maybe not as many YouTubers cover them. Back then, you can just talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, you instantly get views. So, but no, definitely the market is much bigger. If you pick an undervalued community that just doesn't have as many people covering them, you're going to be instantly getting thousands of views as well. And then, yeah, Twitter is just more of a sort of a complement to the overall portfolio. YouTube is definitely 100% my bread and butter.
Understood. So bring us to that point then when you decided, you know what, I'm going to put myself out there and make content. Like, had you produced content of any description before? Was making content part of any previous, aspect of your financial role, or were you used to speaking in front of people? Like, give us the sense of what brought you to essentially becoming, a broadcaster and putting yourself out there as such.
That's a good question, because I was completely like anti-social media before then. I get the feeling a lot of YouTubers who just kind of they've been in some form of content creation for a while, so they're just kind of versed to it. I had an Instagram page, hardly ever tweeted, hardly ever posted anything, hardly any Instagram stories. Facebook was just totally inactive for me. So for me, I was going from strictly kind of a corporate finance background with a lot of, financial markets, some trading on my own, that kind of stuff. So whereas I understand the financial markets pretty well, content creation, totally separate, something I had zero experience in whatsoever. So in the beginning, it was probably a little bit more difficult. You have to work, for SEO, you got to worry about that in the video description, what kind of titles work. You have no idea. Okay, if you put this word in the title, that's something that catches on. The crypto community, you have to figure out which coins to cover, which ones you can cover naturally, which ones you can gel with the demographic of the community, which ones you think are actually going to go up in price, because that's much better if you can do that. You have to do the Twitter game as well. So yeah, it was going from zero social media or content creation experience to that. Now it's pretty much all I do. I love it. The adjustment was probably a little bit, kind of tougher than the average person, but for anyone who has no social media experience, then you can look at me, then it's going well for me right now. So, don't be turned off if you think it's too much of a learning curve.
100%, Ben. That's super inspirational for anybody who's looking and thinking about getting into content. I mean, you're coming from probably, arguably the most corporate. I mean, to use the word, it is literally corporate America. You're in finance. It's super strict, very diligent, very robust tweaks. I can imagine it's very tough. It's probably the polar opposite to what most people expect someone to be a content creator. And also you're, smashing the mold of this idea that you have to have grown up in social media to kind of put yourself out there. When you went to make that first video, like what prompted you? What was the push that finally got you to take the camera out and talk us around that first experience uploading?
That's a good question. It was like May, June 2022. Why that? I'm not really sure. It was just kind of, it was just ready. I remember the market was kind of at sort of a calm period. So I figured this was a good time to make your first video, because it wasn't like November 2021. We just hit 65,000. It was at an all-time high. Then I figured, okay, everyone else is going to be in it. I just kind of made a business decision. It was a good time to enter. First couple videos were definitely scary, but I still had enough time with it doing the regular job. And then I was kind of bored at night too. So I'm like, okay, I got a few hours. I'm not really a TV person, so might as well do some content creation at work, all day, several hours. I would always be checking the charts anyway, keeping up to date with it. So I figured I had the natural knowledge. It was more of just actually crafting these videos, looking good on camera, figuring out titles, thumbnails, graphic design, all that sort of stuff. How to talk, how to write a little script before each video, what to talk about, etc. So why then? I just kind of randomly just figured it was time.
Amazing. Yeah, it just felt like the natural point. And when you began uploading, like, were you instantly putting thought into things like, as you said, SEO, titling, descriptions, thumbnails, or was it just like a raw upload for the first while and then kind of refinement every day thereafter?
It was pretty much bare bones. You have to get a video thumbnail guy. I don't have those graphic design sort of skills, but it was basically just, decide what coin you're going to want to do, spend a couple hours sort of writing a brief script, then, do obviously back then I would have to do plenty of cuts. I would have, talk for this 2 minutes clip. I'd be reclipping like 10, 20, 30 times, getting the flow of it. And figuring out, okay, do I film it all at once, or do I do like 10 or 20 different clips and small and et cetera? Do I want my videos to be longer, 10 minutes each? Do I want them to be shorter, 1, 2, 3 minutes each? How many videos should I post per day? What time of day should you do that? Even though I'm filming at night, should I maybe wait till, the morning to post, or, then is the price action going to be different in the morning? So is my content going to be sort of out of date? Do I have time even at lunch break to throw up a quick video? So you got to figure out all that kind of stuff. It was kind of just learn on my own, kind of just being thrown out in the fire there, bare bones.
Oh, fantastic. I love it. I mean, what I'm hearing and learning from what you're saying was you decided to go for it. It was very much a calm business decision in a calm period of the market, which I really like that approach that you took. And then you just kind of stuck with it and made kind of those pivots constantly. It sounds like you were just pivoting back and forth and figuring out what kind of worked for you in terms of your schedule, what worked for the audience. And at the same time, then I guess refining as you went. But would I be right in saying, your big kind of big takeaway from that is you just stuck with it? You decided that this is what you were going for, and you just decided to stay continuous, I guess, until things started to gain a bit of traction.
Yeah, it was learn on the fly. And then, I knew when I did the first video, there was absolutely no stop, and I knew I was going to stick with it. You just gonna kind of figure out my own, learn, etc. And then, it wasn't like really necessarily finance. It's not like I needed to make the money, but I just kind of knew, okay, I've been thinking about it in the back of my head. Even back in 2017, I was kind of teasing with the idea of start doing videos. So I'm like, okay, mid 2022, definitely going to do it. We're going to just learn the craft, even though I have no experience with it, and we're going to make it work. And, definitely very love what I do every day now. Super energized, even though I'm working more. It's been a great decision.
Yeah, fantastic. And then I guess, 6 months after you started uploading, can you recall how many subscribers you had, and, what life was like? You were still obviously juggling the event management job. Was it kind of starting to become a bit of a challenge with the balance? Or give us the stages through that period before you kind of decided to step away from your previous career.
Yeah, so it was right now I think I have 33,000 subscribers. The first 5,000 or 6,000 came fairly quickly, because even though the market was kind of calm, wasn't too much going on, Bitcoin was still hanging in there relatively decently. Then FTX happened about 6 months in. So then for a period of time, there was a ton of content to create. So that was the good news. But then until between FTX and then when Pepe launched, that was a 6-month period, November 2022 to about April 2023, where pretty much not much of anything was happening with crypto. The prices just weren't moving. So then it was like really, I'd gotten up to 6, 7, 8,000 subscribers, and then it was really hard to grow from there because people just weren't able. And then Pepe, I don't know if the other people you've interviewed have been saying that, but Pepe was just a real turning point. Once that coin started mooning, then okay, you could see these, you could do meme coin videos, not just the typical Shiba Inu, Dogecoin. You could do them, instantly get views. A bunch of other low cap memes were launching themselves. You get a bunch of new business opportunities were coming in. Back then, low cap teams weren't really sort of looking to partner with YouTubers before Pepe. There just was no business there. Then that just changed the game. A bunch of low cap teams partner with them, et cetera. So the first 6 months, mid 2022, then it was pretty steady growth. The next 6 months, very difficult. You had to be really, really crafty with what kind of material you're making. Pepe then changed the game. Then it's been kind of steady growth there from maybe 8,000 subscribers to 33,000 or so where I'm at now.
Fantastic. And I guess through that period, then slowly but surely, you're starting to generate some revenue, bit of monetization. Obviously, deals are starting to come in. Was there was it kind of 2024 where you thought, wow, this is really it? Like, the plan is starting to come together. This is now my future fully fledged career.
Yeah, I found obviously naturally when I was at work, so 2024, but around year 2, that I'm pretty much on the charts like 80% of the time at work. And obviously I'm way more interested in the cryptocurrency stuff at work than, work stuff, which sort of naturally happens when you kind of find what you're really destined to do. So I just figured it was time. And then I could also see that a lot of the people were growing the fastest. They were doing multiple videos per day. They were, tweeting 20 times per day, et cetera. So I just couldn't do that when you're at work. And this was like an in-office job. So it's not like I'm remote where I can kind of just take some Zoom calls here, but really I'm doing crypto stuff. Now it's people walking past you, looking at your computer, looking at your desk, you're, going into meetings in the offices. So the multitasking was just getting more and more difficult. So yeah, it was a little bit scary at first. Now, financially, it was fine and everything. I knew I could maximize my revenue much more going 100% crypto, which I have. More of just the when you're in the working world, you have a bunch of team meetings every day. That sort of comes to you. You have to kind of be more proactive about that stuff with crypto. You can do live streams. We got to join like Twitter Spaces. You can take meetings with teams if you want to, et cetera. But mostly the video, I love doing the videos, and then Twitter Spaces to get the more team engagement, kind of talk in a more public setting, have people kind of hear your knowledge, et cetera. And then I do have a few just minor, not really regular employees, but you got the video editor, thumbnail designer, et cetera. And I kind of communicate with these people every day as well. So you have to be more proactive about sort of working with people and having the team elements.
Yeah, driving it as the entrepreneur and essentially the founder that you are. So I guess, a lesson for someone who's watching this, who is thinking of going into content creation, oftentimes or someone who's thinking about making content kind of nearly puts many mental blocks in front of why they shouldn't do it, so maybe it's a case of, well, I already have a full-time job, so I shouldn't put this out there because God forbid somebody in the office sees me. Maybe that's something I'll come to in a second with you. At the same time, then it's, how am I going to juggle it? But you're a great example of how you just decided you're going to put yourself out there. You're going to stay continuous, keep the cadence and keep pushing forward until it becomes unbearable, really, when you're clearly in a position where the YouTube side can fulfill your income that you wanted. And then it was a natural fit to, I guess, step away from the previous career. During that period where you're in the growth phase, shall we say, did you have any concerns around or awkwardness around, goodness, I really don't want this coming up in the office? Or was it quite a relaxed environment where this was pretty appropriate?
It was event management, so it was a little bit more relaxed. They didn't really care one way or the other about crypto. They sort of knew I was the crypto guy because I'd be talking about it occasionally with people. They knew about my YouTube channel, so I knew it wasn't gonna get me fired or anything like that. But still, you can't be watching other YouTube videos of the crypto people looking at a chart 24/7. Just do a little bit, and then as for whether I'd recommend that people start your YouTube segue just on your own, or whether you would do the job for the first little bit, and then I had a good experience, doing working and then doing the crypto stuff in the beginning. It does get to a point you have to go full on crypto. You just can't grow, but you need to be doing it 24/7 the way in anything. If you really want to become an expert, you have to be in that 100%. I did yeah, I did have a good experience working simultaneously as doing crypto. You're busy as hell, but you just reach that capper. So yeah, I'd recommend it's a good kind of safer way to start. But at some point, you're going to have to go 100% in. There's just no other option.
Yeah, really well said. I guess very fortunate for you at that point. I'm presuming, but maybe fortunate that you weren't kind of back in the banking corporate role. Presumably, that would have been a little bit trickier in terms of putting yourself out there and putting content. So I guess the natural ebb and flow of things suited pretty well. Maybe that was partially why you didn't do it in 2017. Maybe that was one of the factors in your mind. But I guess, one of the things that we always try to shatter on the podcast here is like the barriers as to why someone should stop themselves from going for, putting yourself out there online, regardless of whether it's in, the crypto niche, or if someone just wants to become a thought leader in their own space. In really just simple terms, if someone's teetering on the edge of, making content in any area, what would be your really just simple, pure advice to them?
So one thing I would recommend, I did have a good experience of starting in kind of a bear market when no other people are, like, if you look at the current content creators, probably all the people you've interviewed, most of them or almost all of them started like in the 2021 bull run when things were at the top. I think the last guy actually started mid 2022 that you interviewed, so he's a rare example. But I had a good, good experience then, because very few people were actually starting. The competition wasn't quite, even though it was much more competition in 2017. It was a good way to kind of find communities that were very underserved by YouTubers. You could go in there. So yeah, I'd recommend don't necessarily just start when everyone's talking about crypto. If it's a slow time, start right then. And then as for doing the job simultaneously, I think that's pretty good in the beginning. It worked well for me. Banking, yeah, very risky doing that stuff with banking or another industry that's sort of closely in line with the financial markets. You just got to keep those worlds completely separate. But if you're in another industry, like I have a few people who are just in kind of like the entertainment industry, some friends from back in Los Angeles, yeah, totally unrelated to crypto, so they can totally, they're talking about it at lunch break, they're sharing charts and all that kind of stuff. There isn't really a sort of it's not like you have any liabilities you have to worry about there. But if you're in banking or just an industry that's in competition with crypto, then it's very hard to kind of merge the two.
Yeah. So be smart about it, exactly, depending on what's going on. But big thing that I take away from, and I love the aspect of like the complementary approach you have with Twitter to your YouTube channel. But when you were kind of building the channel initially, did you have a specific community in mind that you felt was underserved? As in, could you mentally see, kind of your viewer avatar? Or was it just a case of, I'm going to pump content out and kind of see what sticks and then pivot towards that kind of avatar individual over time?
It's a great question, because honestly, a lot of the communities that you end up fitting in great with and you grow the most, it's really not the community you choose in the beginning. It isn't necessarily the natural community that you want to go into. It's the communities you think are a good fit with you. They might have too many other influencers already covering them, or the community might not just vibe with you as much as you're hoping. But then you'll see in your comments of those videos, a bunch of other people from another community. They're like, come show us. In the beginning, you don't really pay attention to it. Then you're like, okay, I'll do a test video. It gets great traction. Do another video, and then, by the time you're doing your fourth, fifth video, you're naturally into that community. You are super bullish. They've done their job at kind of turning you into, like, Baby Doge is one of those communities. That was a huge coin in 2021. They were always shilling in my comments. I didn't really have too much. I thought it was kind of like a childish meme, Baby Doge. But now, a couple months, I finally did a video. It did great. Second, third, fourth video. And that's probably the single community that I've done the most videos on. Not really that much in the last 6 months or so, but the first year or two, that's why I really grew my following. So just be open to communities that you wouldn't naturally necessarily choose on your own, and then pay attention in the comment section. When people are showing you, it's easy to ignore that, but you never know. You could find your next, big following community in the comment section.
Yeah, really good advice. Like your own audience are actually kind of guiding you on this path in terms of where you can go with things. What I love also about what you said is, the fact that there's, I guess in a way, there's nearly two aspects to the word community in terms of your experience, Ben. There's the communities that you're serving in terms of the content that you're putting out, but I guess there's also the community of other creators like Zach, for example, that over the years you've become friendly with, which is, fantastic. I think that's one of the other aspects that, content creation, some people fear that, goodness, this is like chronically lonely. And as you said, for sure, there's maybe lonelier periods, but definitely once you stick with it, you start to find your crew, find your community, kind of find your tribe as such. Is that something that, energizes you every day? You're jumping on Twitter Spaces, you're kind of interacting with now guys who I guess you'd class as buddies really at this stage.
Yeah, like Oscar Ramos fits into that category perfectly. I met him at a conference once. He joined Zach Humphrey's Twitter space pretty regularly. He joins other Twitter Spaces around. So yeah, it's just people you need to make friends in the industry. Basically, you need to go on Twitter Spaces. That's the best way to make friends. If you're just tweeting, maybe you DM somebody about a coin, you think okay, maybe this person I can be friends with. We can share experience. They might, most of the time they don't respond, to be honest. If you're, at least if you're in the beginning. So you got a Twitter Space, the best way to connect with people, and you have to go to conferences. I like to try to go to about 4 or 5 conferences per year, because then those are the people in Twitter Spaces you can actually meet in person. Then you're going to meet new people. You have to connect with people beyond just doing the YouTube. If you're just doing the YouTube, that would be a little bit isolated. It would just make it a little bit less fun going to conferences. So I would definitely recommend Twitter Spaces as a compliment. And I would definitely recommend going to conferences. When you're at conferences, you hear the buzz about what people are buying, what sectors are becoming hot, more so than anywhere on crypto Twitter, in a different way than on crypto Twitter or on YouTube. So I would definitely recommend those as a compliment to your YouTube. But YouTube is, this is first and foremost, this is how you grow the most, this is how you make the most money. And then also working with exchanges, that's another thing I would recommend. I didn't do that for the first 2 years. I'm like, oh, affiliate marketing, whatsoever. But I found that my tutorial videos of like how to trade on this exchange, how to do futures in this exchange, how to do copy trading, those do pretty well. I wouldn't have thought that. I think not enough people just do bare bones tutorial videos, so they can't really explain things in a layman terms. So those videos do well. And then more importantly, I found I've been making more money with affiliate marketing than I would have guessed in the beginning by far. So I would be open to that. At first I'm like, oh, well, they're not really paying you outright. Like they don't really pay you like a flat monthly fee in the beginning. So I'm like, is it even worth it? It takes a few months to really kind of see the revenue grow in there, but so be open to things you're not always open to. And working with exchanges for me has been a positive, particularly on the YouTube side.
Yeah. Amazing. The willingness to experiment, I guess, is exactly that, Ben. Fantastic. Look, some absolute gems you've shared with us over the last half an hour or so. Final question, because I'm conscious of your time, and I'm super grateful for everything thus far. In terms of what excites you most as we race rapidly towards 2026 and surely the rest of this decade, given the mass adoption and the institutionalization of crypto over the last, let's say, 10 months, especially with the current US administration, things are rapidly moving fast across the globe. What excites you most about your own journey? Where do you want to take things? Where do you see yourself kind of at 2030 in terms of being a crypto content creator?
Just want to keep growing, basically, get the YouTube channel bigger. I want to hit more low caps in my Twitter calling, grow the Twitter following, want to, speak on conferences, maybe even want to start my own Twitter Spaces, etc. So just keep growing, have the market grow as well. I'm eyeing $150,000 BTC by the end of the year. I just keep going up from there. I want the market to just completely avoid any bear market that we've had in 2022, 2018, 2014. I want to 4-year cycle. I want to eradicate that out. I just want us to kind of grow at a slow and steady upward rate, definitely beat out any other, perform better than any other asset class, et cetera. And then keep hitting new all-time highs, avoid the bear markets. I've been through 2 bear markets now, 2018 and 2022. That's like a boring year and a half. So that's my goal for the industry. Avoid that and just keep growing my channels, find new communities, keep hitting, 100Xs with the low calls, grow my own portfolio. I do a lot of trading. Some YouTubers maybe do a lot of trading, some maybe don't. I do a ton, and then, keep the exchange relationships going well, profitable.
Fantastic. No, Ben, absolutely super. Really, really inspirational. You're coming from a background that's not the typical, I guess, in terms of pivoting into content creation. You went at it from ice cold. You stuck with it over time. You made that decision to pursue it. And I guess here we are several years later. And I mean, your growth over just 3 years is phenomenal and so inspirational for someone. I think, when you're quoting, 2022, 2023, we can all hark back in our heads to that year, wherever and whatever we were doing. And it feels like so short a period of time, as in the time goes so much faster. It feels like every year, whether that's to do with our age or just the pace of life. So I guess if someone is looking at this and inspired by Ben, don't sit on the sidelines, go for it, whatever your niche is, whatever you are, I guess, excited by. And if you just want to become a thought leader, even in your own industry with your current profession, then put yourself out there, because there's undoubtedly benefits to come from it. So Ben, thank you so much again. Super grateful for your time. Really inspirational. I'm looking forward to chatting to you in 12 months time, see where the sub count is, get your latest thoughts and tips on everything. But thank you so much again for being with us here today.
Great. Thank you a ton, Garvin. It's been great chatting with you here. Look forward to chatting with you the next time as well. And thank you very much for having me.